Welcome to Bring Out Your Badass Self, a movement to break your negative thoughts and habits and instead focus on building each other up and encouraging fearless authenticity.
Each week, we will get vulnerable and share experiences alongside our guests and audience. Come rediscover your inner badass self.
Good morning. Happy Friday, badass.
Yes, thank God it's Friday.
I've already said that a couple of times.
Oh my gosh, it has been a week.
Yes, it certainly has. Tell me what your world has been this week, please.
You know, it's been a little crazy. Last Thursday, you guys know, those that joined the audio, I headed down to a hurricane,
Yes.
knowing that it was happening, but I had an event that I wanted to go to, and I was like, I'm going to this thing. So I drove down on Thursday, and I'm sitting there and I make it, and I've already bought my food. I brought it down with me so I didn't have to shop down there.
Because you were in Airbnb. Like
I was
wanted to have a kitchen.
Exactly. So I'm in Savannah, and it's like the rain is like hitting up against the window and everything. And I'm like, I'm going to make myself a meal. So like, I'm hungry. So I had a steak, I had cabbage, I had rice, like I'm making myself a meal, and I am doing this, but it's just like hitting up, and I'm like, oh shit, And so then I start eating it, and in the middle, the electric goes off and it comes back on. Electric goes off, comes back on. And so I finish my meal, but like it's a mess. Like, I have a lot of stuff. And then my electricity ends up completely going out, and was out the entire time that I was there. So not only did I not have electricity, I didn't have air conditioning, of course, and none of the windows would open because they were all painted shut. And you don't get hot water when you don't have electricity.
So, all those dishes, you're showering. Oh my God.
So I'm taking cold showers, which actually felt lovely because I'm so hot.
Because you're so fucking hot. Yeah. Did you have to shave? Because shaving in cold water, like your legs, is the worst.
No, luckily I shaved my legs before I left, like I at least prepared for that type of thing.
Right.
And I'm like, at nighttime, it's like so hot. I like go take a cold shower because that's all I had, but it felt nice. So I take a cold shower, and the day before I had washed my hair in the cold shower, and I was like trying to, I blow dry it, and whenever I blow dry it, it's very quick, but I was having to like manually. So I'm like doing this the entire time, doing this, just kept trying, where it would look decent. But the next day I put dry shampoo in it, and I, don't have a blow dryer still yet again, because we have no electricity. And so I go to the hotel that I'm about to go to the event in. I'm in a suit, but I need a blow dryer. And
your hair.
Yes. And so I like walk into the bathroom, and it has a plug, and I'm like, oh, awesome. I plug in my blow dryer. It does not work. And I'm like, okay, like what's going on? And I'm like, okay, let me plug in my phone. Let me see if it's the plug. And then my phone, I finally figured out, and it works. I put my blow dryer in again. What I didn't notice is that there's the tester thing, or the little yes. So I hadn't pressed that, but I'm thinking my blow dryer blew because it was like partially working. It was weird because I had partial electricity. Yeah. But it was like, blowing real light. So I go up to the front desk, and I'm like, hi, I'm not staying here, but I'm gonna come to an event here, and I need a blow dryer. Stat, exactly. And so they're just looking at me, and they're just like, but you're not staying here? And I was like, no, but I'm going to be here for a full day for an event. And the lady was like, well, all the blow dryers are in people's rooms, and we're completely booked out. And I said, well, you have to have an extra blow dryer in case one of them goes out. And some other lady goes, I'll see if we have one. And I said, thank you. And so they found me one. I was able to use it. but along, the other thing, I had a family member that passed away as well. So I went to their funeral yesterday. I got in to see the viewing the day before, just a little bit. And so it was not unexpected. He had, I can't pronounce the name, but it's a brain cancer, basically. It starts with a G, glioblastoma. I can't remember. I never remember how to pronounce it. But they actually thought that he would live about no more than 18 months, 15 to 18 months, and he lived over 5 years.
Wow.
And so the eulogy and everything was just beautiful. They played taps because he was in the military.
That's a heart.
I know,
Yeah.
while we were, at the burial site. And one of the things that they said, that I also had written something prior to the minister speaking. And one of the things that really stood out to me is that, one, he didn't let the doctors tell him how long he had. His goal and what he said is that, I want to see both of my kids graduate. And his son just graduated in May.
Oh.
So his daughter had already graduated, so he was able to make both of them see both of their graduations. And so for me, the other thing that stood out is that he enjoyed life. Even after his diagnosis, he had a bucket list of things he wanted to do, and he went and fucking did it. And so I just, I love that about him, that he did those things. The other thing that really stood out, and even his brother was like, shit, I got a legacy to live up to. Everyone was like, Chris, Chris was his brother. He said, his brother Todd, everyone said that he is the nicest guy you would ever meet. And when you think about, like, when you leave, what's going to be said about you,
What's
like,
your
that's not
legacy?
a bad thing to be said, is that you're the nicest, kindest person. And he was a doctor, and so people talked about his bedside manners and how lovely he was and how sweet he was, how empathetic he was. And that just really stood out to me in thinking about, like, who you are, and how people will remember you, the things that, the impact, how you make people feel in life.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing, Sarah. I'm so sorry. I know that you were so supportive to Todd and his wife and family.
As much as I could be. It was, I wanted to be more, but I'm glad that I was able to go and help her, when I did.
Yeah. Well, I'm really sorry. And he sounds awesome. And it's like, that phrase, like, the good die young, it's like, it's just it's so frustrating, right? When you think about it, sometimes, like, there's some people out there that aren't nice and aren't, full of empathy and aren't doing good in this world, and they live forever sometimes,
Yeah. I was next to his father, and they were bringing his casket out to go to the gravesite, and he just said, "This isn't right." And I just felt so bad, because this is their oldest son. He was 59, almost 60.
That's so young.
And he was 10 years older than me. So he was one of the oldest cousins. So we have a total of 20 first cousins.
Mm-hmm.
So I have 18 first cousins, and he was, I think he's the second oldest. We were, like, going through them all, trying to put them all in order.
Yeah.
And I think that he's the second oldest. So being 10 years older, like, I remember him, and there's certain things that I remember about him. One was me playing pool with him, and how annoying I'm sure that I was, but he allowed me. That's one of the reasons I ended up learning pool, is through him and Chris. And so I remember that very fondly.
Aw, I love that. Yeah, it's it's just so hard, to bury your child, and even if he's almost 60, that's still, his dad is still alive. It's just sad.
I know.
It's not right.
Well, one other thing, and then I want to hear about your week, because you've had quite the week as well.
Yes.
The last thing that happened to us, I was like, this was not on my bingo card. Hurricane, lots of people dealing with flooding.
Yeah.
I had family members without electricity, like, just got electricity back.
Yeah.
My sister, injured herself Yesterday, my mother's husband injured himself. He fell,
no.
broke a rib. And then next to us, we had a biolab explode. And so we were dealing with that, got back from the hurricane and was dealing with that. I was like, what the hell is going on?
Right. Yeah, some weird form of hell.
I
Jeez.
know. And
Oh
so, I've just been trying to keep my, positivity, laughing at the absurd.
Right. Yeah, no kidding.
Oh, and
Oh
then
my gosh.
you're not involved with all of the hurricane stuff, but you had a pretty um eventful week that you were not expecting as well, that no one ever wants, and it's the worst people to hear from.
Yes, exactly. So yeah, I received earlier this week an email out of the blue from my banker who said, just wanted to let you know that the state levied your accounts, your business account. And I was like, what? Um, this is a very, very small business. It doesn't have a lot of revenue coming in. It supports 2 employees, one main employee, and it was payroll week, so it was literally they cleared it out completely. So it was so frustrating. And so then I had to get on the phone with the State Department of Revenue, and my first instinct was like, oh fuck, Cate, what did you do? Because I have a pile of paperwork I haven't dealt with. I'm sure a lot of you do. But I was like, oh no, is there something in there I missed? Like how could this happen? I had no clue what was going on. Finally get a hold of a human, and it turns out my CPA didn't file a specific one form out of the 2020 business taxes. And they just, and even though this form has been filed every year, including 23, every year since 2010, and we never owed anything, not once, the state decided to estimate that. When they don't have a form, they estimate it. So they estimated it was about $5,000. And then they start collecting interest and penalties on that amount, even though it's made up. And then the other twist that's really frustrating is that they did send about 5 letters to me, and because I went through, because I was like, how can this happen? You have to notify people, like this. It turns out, in 21, we canceled or switched from a PO box to my home address, and so I changed the address everywhere, and it turned out that the state had both addresses, because I had provided it to them. I had switched it, or so I thought. They were sending these notices to the PO box. Apparently, they didn't get returned, or if they, I don't know. But end result is that I'm still responsible, even if we will submit the correct form, and even if it shows up that we don't owe taxes, which is what the assumption is, I still have to pay the taxes and penalties, which amount to $5,000. So I'm out, I'm out the money. I had to fund payroll with my family money. And it's just pretty frustrating situation, and really feels quite unfair. And I haven't, figured out my way out of it yet, or if I have any options, so
Yeah.
it's a perfect setup for our episode today. So, I guess, thank you, universe. I don't know.
Oh my gosh. I know, we were talking about it. We were like, well, it does fit this week's topic.
I guess the small bright side is I have a nice personal vulnerability I can share, and then we'll dive into the topic, I guess.
I'm still thinking, a CPA, you should be responsible for that. So
Yes,
we'll
I did
see
reach
how this
out.
progresses.
Yeah, she reached back to gather information, but she hasn't been super responsive. I don't know, I asked, do you have insurance to cover this? I don't know how this works. And
Yeah.
I still had a very, very full work schedule this week. So I already had to miss, I had to put things aside and miss things in order to deal with this, because these calls have to be made during the day,
I mean,
but I just,
we do have two people that have been CPAs, and one that's still a CPA. I'm not sure about the other one.
yeah,
But Terry and Matt Macaulay are, I know Matt had been in the past, and Terry is a CPA. So we have people you can talk to.
I know. Well, I did have a call with our business manager shortly after, and it was fresh. And so when she asked me, how I was, I just was like, I'm okay. And then, it came out, and she was able to validate like how absolutely frustrating these systems are. And she knew a lot, and so that was somewhat helpful so I am going to tap into, I told Jenna, I do work with a whole fuck ton of accountants, so I can probably get some help at some point once I can speak about it without tearing up.
Wow. Well, this isn't the normal Friday. Normally we're like, hey, we're going to have a good time.
Right.
But I think it's also good for people to know, like, shit happens in people's lives. And, sometimes you just got to go through the emotions and feel the emotions. And this week, I think both Cate and I had some good cries.
Yes, exactly. Public and otherwise. So it is what it is.
All right. Well, let's say hello to everyone that has been coming in. And so Kim, she said good morning and happy Friday to two amazing, beautiful, badass ladies. Good morning, Kim.
She was so supportive. She was on the call with Wendy, and she was like, oh man, my heart broke when I heard you crack up.
Oh my gosh. Lisa's here. So we're actually going to be having Lisa later on in the year. So later in December. So I actually was able to catch up and chat with her today. And so we're going to be talking about menopause and also how it affects men too. Did you know that men actually can deal with menopause as well?
Is it still called menopause?
I don't know. So we'll find out when we talk to her. So she said, happy Friday, everyone. And then we have Maria coming from YouTube. Good morning, badasses.
Yes. I love you, Maria.
That's how I'm imagining it being said.
Yes, it has to be. That's how
it's almost like Good Morning Vietnam.
Yes. Right. We did that on one of our first episodes. You did that because
And then, good. And so I think it's Trini is how you pronounce it. Let me know if I'm pronouncing it correctly. But she is on a couple of other audios that I've been on. And so welcome. I'm so glad you're here. Yes. And she said, great Friday to everyone. And she said, ouch. I think that was related to you.
Yes. When you hear the word levy, you're like, oh.
Oh, and then we have Divine. She says, hello, loves.
Hello.
And then we have Gabe. He said, hello there. He also advertised this morning. For those that don't know, he has a daily advertisement that tells people about all of the different events that are going on. So yes. I go out there. I've actually signed up for a couple of others, and he's having one later today as well that looks to be fun. So I'm hoping that I'm able to make that. And then he also said, yeah, the struggle is real. Oh no, sometimes the things we're dealing with during the week. And then, so it looks like Divine's coming through also on YouTube. She said, I had some good cries too this week. Yeah. So I think it was a releasing week. And so I need to get out and do some grounding. I need to put my feet on the ground, I feel.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And Jenna suggested the other night, because she just had a little bit of a rough week, just, hormonally, and she's got so much going on in the household, and preparing. Today is our 16-year-old 17th birthday, so happy birthday to our baby Lucas.
Oh, happy birthday.
Yeah, so 17 today, and pretty exciting stuff. We're gonna head out to an arcade later and have a family lunch and a family dinner, and probably play some Cards Against Humanity, because That is the best with your teenagers. If
Oh
you
my
have
God.
teenagers, play that game because it is embarrassing and fun and awesome. It's like, oh my God, I did not know you knew what that was.
Oh God.
Yeah.
Sometimes I look at my daughter and go, "How did you know that?"
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like to
Oh, I thought he was saying it to you.
oh, probably, but it's more me, but they probably are like, oh, mom, right?
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Well, and
So,
Lisa said, really amazing to see you both smiling and laughing despite everything. Yes.
yes.
And that's what you got to do. And
Yeah.
so Trini also said, responsibility is a selection word, not always easy.
Oh, yeah. From the state. Right.
Yeah. And Lance says, let's go.
Oh, Lance, good to see you.
Tori said, "Good morning, lovies."
Good
And
morning.
so thank you guys for coming in. Oh, we got some more people. I needed to scroll down. Good morning. Been there, lived that.
Oh,
So thank
it's
you for joining
real.
us, Elizabeth. All right, and then Tree, she said, "Yes, you say my name totally smoot."
And it looks like perfect. A-okay.
All right, awesome. Well, so today we're going to be talking about the topic of I forgot what we named this. What did we name this? Investing in love. That was what it
Investing
was.
in love. It's
Oh gosh.
all about, choosing a partner that you are compatible with financially
Yes. As
all
well
these
as
other ways.
this is really a topic that most people don't think of love as something as a financial decision, but it really is the most important financial decision that you make in life.
Yeah, you said that to me when we were preparing for this, and I was like, I guess you are correct, which is the first time I ever thought of that in my 45 years. So, so this is why I will be asking a lot of the questions. I do, for the record, feel as though Jenna and I are very financially compatible. I will say that sometimes that is to a fault because we both have the same type of risk taking and impulse issues, right? So sometimes there is no sound of reason. Um, but yeah, today, I posted on my LinkedIn, I want to get all the money juice I want to squeeze the money juice out of Sarah's brain for us today, guys. So I'm going to ask all sorts of questions because this is a topic that she is well versed in and educated on, and then has lived quite well, right? In terms of life experience around this. So,
Yeah.
Lan says, my lovey taught me how to save through example. I used to spend like I was going to die tomorrow. I love that.
Yeah, so we're going to be talking about that as well.
Yeah. So, Miss Sarah, let's start with, can you kind of share some examples of how financial compatibility or incompatibility can often impact or affect a relationship, long term or otherwise? But I think long term is really, what we would want to get to the meat of.
Yeah, whenever I started to think about this topic, I actually went out and did some research because I was like, okay, is what I think actually true? And so I started to do some research on, because I've always heard that one of the reasons people end up getting divorced is because of financial issues. And so the other one being, sexual incompatibility and other things. But one of the things that I found interesting is Forbes advisor ended up saying that women were more likely than men to indicate they married for financial reasons, with 44% of women reporting that this led to their union. And I really started to think about that. And to give the audience a little bit of perspective. So I got married really young at age 19, and it was sort of that. Like, I wanted to get out of the house, and I was with, that's sort of what you do in a small town, is you get married, and it is because of that financial security of joining with someone, because being out on your own is not as easy.
Right.
So I started to think about that, but I also think about it from like the gender gap, the pay as well,
Mhm.
and also, as you're starting out, a lot of times you'll join just because you want that safety net of each other.
Right.
And so I had, my first marriage, I would say that I sort of invested in my husband. And then we ended up divorcing. And so I went through, luckily I didn't have kids, but I went through the realization for myself that I needed to make sure that I was taking care of me.
Mm.
And if anybody is going to jump off early, or if you don't take anything else away from this, is that when we start talking about anything in life, and especially finances, you got to be able to take care of you.
Mm.
And for me, that also continues to set you up further on in your life, to make sure that you are in a place that, should you deal with devastation, should you deal with divorce, should you deal
Right.
with any of these things, that you're not in an oh shit situation of how am I going to take care of myself.
Right.
So I wanted to just sort of start there and talk about that. But they did find that couples did, the cause of marital woes was 28% listed finances.
Oh, okay.
Expecting that to be higher. Some of the main issues was really compatibility, but I wonder if some of the compatibility might actually be around finances as well.
Yeah.
But when couples have different desires to things regarding like lifestyle, or
Mhm.
we always talk about values on this show,
Yeah.
values related to money, whether it's being frugal or whether it's spending, as well as like long-term financial goals, things like that. That's really what leads to conflict. And so I first want to start by asking the audience, and I'm going to answer this, and Kate, I also wanted you to answer this, is
Yeah.
that the first question I think that is important for people to think about is, are you a spender or a saver in your relationship? And so I asked my daughter this question, and I said, are you a spender or are you a saver? And she said, a spender. And so I asked her, I said, so what is dad? Is he a spender or a saver? And she said, he's both. And then
Hmm.
she asked me, and she said, you're a saver. And I said, really? And she goes, well, you spend money on other people. You don't spend it on yourself.
That
And I,
is true.
okay. And then I reminded her of my Amazon shopping. And then she was like, okay, you're both.
I was like, well,
But, then I asked her, I said, okay, you being a spender, if you're in a relationship with a spender, how do you think that can impact you? And she was like, yeah, that wouldn't be good. She was like, I need to be with a saver. So I wanted people to sort of think about this and answer this question for yourself. Are you a spender or are you a saver? And so my husband and I think, are savers. But now that we, are better off financially, we're probably more spenders in some ways, but still savers in
yeah.
heart. Like, we're still looking at the things in our life and the things like that. So Kate, what about you and your life?
So we are one in a lot of ways, and so for many, 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 many years we were spenders, and we both, and I think it's a. I mean, we could go deep into it, but I mean, we've had a lot of loss in our lives. We've had a lot of trauma. I think for us, it was, part of how we were conditioned and part of how we coped, but also I think a part of just like, God, life is fucking short, this is just paper at the end of the day. And I always make more money, like, so like, for a long time, the mentality was, well, we can spend it. I'll just make more. I'll make more. Like I will always find and make money. It's been the last 5-ish years where we have realized that we want to become savers, and so we are working on becoming savers, and changing our behaviors and things around it. So we're trying. It's
Yeah.
hard. It's not our natural inclination at all.
Well, Divine said something, that you mentioned, is that legal marriage was created for a business, not for love. And
Yeah.
then Maria said, my main mission from age 5 is financial independence, but I married for what I thought was love.
Yeah. Right.
And so, and then Divine also said, I agree that financial security is a part of the foundation. And Trini says, can be from what for 150, 200 years ago, the women were a man's property. Yeah, daughter
Yes.
or wife. That's a
Right.
great point as well.
Yeah, I thought of that too. I was like, well, patriarchy and our history has certainly played a big role in that as well.
Yeah. And so
Divine's a
Divine says
spender.
she's a spender. Maria says, I'm both. Life is for living. And then he must be a saver. Yes. So I think she's talking about the person that she's either with or wants
Going
to
to
be
be.
with.
Yeah.
Both, I think, in different topics. Okay.
Hmm.
Yep. And then she said that she feels, yeah, definitely, let's live, and we should feel secure though always. Yes.
Maria, I just wanted to say, you mentioned that your, financial independence was always your focus. And so I'm making the assumption that you were, able to be somewhat financially independent, even though you were married. And I feel like I'm so glad if it turned out that that was not the person for you. I'm so glad that you were able to take care of yourself, because I could imagine, had you been unable, how much harder it would have been to find your way out of that. So
Yeah.
that's a blessing that you had that mission from such a young age.
Yeah. And so I talked about spender and savers.
Yeah.
I think some of the other compatibility things to think about are really your values. Think about your lifestyle and the things that are important to you. And
Right.
so, for example, is it important to have experiences and go travel and to spend money on things? Is it important for you to save for your children's college, to save for your retirement? So wanting a house, so when you start to think about those things, sometimes the values and the lifestyle
Mhm.
choices that each of us have can be different. So what
Right.
are the things that are important to each of you? And that's where Jay and I have always been on the same page. We
Right.
both wanted a family. We both, want, the things that, the house, the security, getting out of debt, that type of thing.
Right.
And so that's also one of the other things that I have noticed. And this was with the second relationship. So the second relationship that I was with was I was also with that person for almost 7 years, and that person was a musician. So anybody that knows musicians, the joke is, what do you call a musician that doesn't have a girlfriend?
Brooke.
Homeless. And they tell this joke, not me. And I was like, oh shit, that's actually true. And so I actually spent time with this individual, but I would say that for me, I spent time helping him to understand financial things and choices that he had made that didn't work for him.
Yeah.
He spent time helping me from an emotional perspective. So it was a combination of the two, that we helped each other out in the time we were together, but we helped each other out in different ways.
And you were like mid to late 20s in that
Yeah.
time frame,
Yeah.
So, your brain had gotten done cooking, at like 25. but like it's so cool that you were able to like help him on the financial side at, at a pretty young age, I think.
Well, yeah, and not to mention that he was 21 years older than me.
Oh, I forgot about that.
So, but
Money knows no age.
yes. And so the thing is that, he had been successful in the music industry, but the way he was successful was a little bit different. But he had never really learned financial independence in the music industry in a lot of ways.
Right.
So I actually spent some time. I actually, because I was thinking, that whenever I go into a relationship, I'm always looking at being the person that I'm looking at this from a long-term perspective.
Yeah, you're all in.
When I was with him, what I found was that he was quite in debt. And I ended up helping him to get out of debt. And along the way, I also realized that I did not want to be in this relationship. But what I did is I helped him still. I spent like a year of helping him to get back up on his feet before I ended up ending the relationship, just because
so he wasn't homeless.
Correct.
Yeah.
And so, but I was like, all right, let's, get you like a job to start doing Social Security. Like I started explaining to him how he screwed himself early on in life through Social Security and the things that he did. And I was like, you do know that, the more money you actually, put in from a Social Security perspective, they look at a certain time frame, the most that you make, and that's what you'll end up making later on in life. Right. And so like I had these types of conversations. I was like, let's get you also a regular job where you're paying into Social Security and things like that. But it was still in the music industry. It was selling pianos. And so for me, it was helping him, but I actually helped him pay off debt, like a large amount of debt. And then I found out he had yet another credit card, and I was like, whoa, like, and so that gets into some of the other things of, the compatibility. As you start to think about things, you also have to have trust. You have to have honesty with each other.
Yeah.
You
have to be able to talk about it, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Which kind of leads me into the next question I want to ask, which is like, how often should couples have those money talks, and how deep should they go? Like, sometimes Jenna and I struggle with that a little bit at times, because there are times when she kind of wants to just, because she's so busy, she kind of, she jokes, she's like, sometimes sometimes I'm the 1950s housewife and I'm just like, money, please. And then, and she has no idea where any of it's coming from, More recently, as we are working on saving, we've realized it's really got to be a group effort, and we have to talk about the ins and outs of everything. So the burden isn't on me and also solely on me, but also, so that she has some awareness around it and can support, the different things that we need to do. But, but give me your money juice on that. So how, what should these conversations actually cover?
Yeah. So, there's how often you should be having the conversation. There's also what you should be talking about. And for me, there's also the effective conversations, but there's also red flags. So I'm going to talk about all of those things. So when you think about like a business, for example, you have an annual conversation about things, but you also want long-term, like you want to sit down with someone who's actually more aware of finances, topics, and things like that. So we go meet with an advisor, and someone that we invest money in. And even if you don't have necessarily money right now, I still would recommend going and talking to an advisor to talk about like Social Security, for example. Like, okay, let's plot out, this is how much I think I need on a monthly basis whenever I retire. When do you think you're going to retire, for example? And then you're plotting out, well, how much money do you think you need? And so I can tell you for us, we have said that we want $10,000 a month. And whenever I told my daughter that, I was like, well, think about if we have to go into a home, like an
Right.
assisted living and things like that. So I started having that conversation with her, and she was like, I can't even imagine, you going in there. I'm like, I really appreciate that you wanted to help, want that. And if you're able to do that, that's fine. But I also want to be prepared so I'm not putting that burden on you as
Mhm.
well. So when you start thinking about those things, you start looking at how much money you need after you're retiring. How much is Social Security going to make up of that percentage? And then how much of Social Security won't make up that percentage?
Yeah.
And
We
so,
pause for a second.
yeah.
So the financial advisor thing. So,
Mhm.
my assumption is, that like you don't get a wealth advisor or a financial advisor until you have significant wealth. And I never really thought of it that way. Although Jenna did tell me a great story about a woman who manifested the lottery winnings. And one of the things she was very poor. One of the things she did is she started meeting with a financial advisor, and the guy thought she was just nuts. But she started planning this what she's going to do with the money that she was convinced was going to come to her. But outside of that, like, would that be awkward? Like you've experienced that, I have not. Like, tell me, like you just and you pay them like it's like a therapist, but for your money, or tell me
No,
more.
I don't pay him anything. Like, you meet with him and because the intent is that you're going to eventually be working with him. So it could be, hey, I'm wanting advice. I currently have a 401k. And the conversation could even start with, you're at a company, you have a 401k, and then you're moving. Well, you have to put that money somewhere. You can leave it there, or you can go and invest it and
Right.
have it be a part. So that could start the conversation. You could also say, I'm wanting to prepare and understand. So as I continue to make money, I want to be able to understand, how it is that would be best to invest in what it is that I'm doing. One of the things that I would suggest is that you're always looking at how much interest you're paying in things. So if
Yeah.
your debt that you have is 10% or 7% or whatever, you're looking at paying off that type of debt first, and you're putting money towards the principal. So and you have to be very specific when you're doing that. So when you and one of the things that you can do is, when you get bonuses, agree that you won't use those bonuses for anything else but towards debt if you're in debt, and get those things paid off. But when you send it in, say this is towards the principal, because the more you can lay towards the principal, the more the interest, will not impact you because you're basically shortening it. One of the
Right.
things that Edwin, Carrie's husband, taught me is that if you were to get a 30-year loan, you can still pay it off in 15 years. So you don't need the 15-year loan. You can just pay double and you have a 15-year loan. But when you're in dire straits, you don't want that 15-year loan, because if you need that lower payment, then
Right.
you have it. But you can still
It's like
do a
a cushion.
15-year
Yeah.
loan by doing a 30-year loan.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. I didn't think of it that way either,
Yeah.
but okay, that's awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. A couple
Keep
of
going.
other things, to think about as well as budgeting. So we didn't talk about like how often. So,
Yeah.
you need the longer term plan. You need to talk annually on where things are at. So we meet yearly with our financial person, see where we're at, and we're like, we constantly are looking like, when can we retire? When can we retire? Right now. And so we're looking at those types of things. And then we're also seeing where things are at. But I can tell you, early on in my life, I was looking at, you definitely want to look at your finances every month in where it is you're at. And I can tell you, I almost felt like I was looking at things weekly, because when I first was starting out, I was responsible for my own college. I was responsible
Mhm.
for everything. Once, I went off, I was on my own. My parents didn't pay for anything. So luckily was able to get a scholarship for
Mhm.
theater for the first 2 years, but then I had student loans. And part of my divorce, my husband decided he wanted to pay those, and he got the house. I was like, okay. And so he's still paying those off. And that was like the worst financial decision he actually could have made. But that's what he chose. And you cheat on someone, you probably feel guilty. And so, so okay.
Right.
But that, and the lawyer tried telling him he was making a mistake. Like, you shouldn't do this.
Mm.
And so, but that was something that ended up actually helping me in the long run, financially, is because that was a decision he chose he wanted to do.
Yeah.
So I ended up getting sort of lucky there, in some ways. I
Yeah,
still
that's
am
awesome.
responsible, but legally not responsible. It's a weird
Yeah.
thing because the loan is still under my name, so I'm still legally responsible. But from a lawyer perspective, the divorce, he's ultimately responsible for it. So
Hmm.
yeah, so it was
So you can still tell, like you can check that account and see, and so,
yeah.
and you can still see that, man, it's been like 30 years, right?
Oh
And he's
yeah, it's a
still,
30-year loan. Yeah, exactly. And so, so there's things there that you definitely need to be looking at. But if I think about the things that I did to help myself, is that I went towards credit card debt first and foremost. Like, I wanted to make sure that anything I put on a credit card, I was paying off every month.
yeah,
Because the moment they get those interest rates in you, that's when you just start going down. It becomes really difficult. So
right.
what I did with the middle relationship is, when I helped him out, this is what the tactic that I took. Luckily, I had some good credit,
Hmm.
and I ended up looking at his debt, and I said, okay, we can pay off this amount in 6 months. They gave us a 0% financing for
For a
6 months.
new card, right?
Yep, for a new card. I took that amount, transferred it over, paid extra, paid minimum on everything else, but paid extra on the 0% financing, got it paid off, got another 0% financing, transferred over what I knew that we could pay off in 6 months. And I did that in 2 years. We got everything, all of his debt, and it ended up being about $40,000 worth of debt that I got paid off in 2 years by just doing that tactic.
Wow.
And credit cards are willing to do those types of offers in a
Right.
lot of ways to be able to entice you, because they think you won't be able to pay it off. But make sure you can pay it off,
Right.
in that, and then just get another 0% financing, and just continue to whittle it down. There also
Right.
are financial companies out there that will help you and also get them to minimize things as well. So I would recommend
Consolidation.
checking out those as well.
Yeah. 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 Those credit cards have such high interest rates. It's, there's benefits of credit cards. If you are able to get them paid off, if, let's say, you are in debt and then you get to the position where you are able to successfully have that debt gone, you can then leverage the credit cards, you know for your spending, for your like normal spending,
Yeah.
but you pay them off every single month, or so that it's really to your benefit, because then you're getting like the rewards that's attached to the credit card, right? Um, Credit cards also have better protection oftentimes than like your debit card. So
Yes.
there's all sorts of benefits to that as well.
Yep. So I want to ask the audience a question. How often do you talk with your partner about finances? And if you're not in a relationship right now, maybe a past relationship that you were in.
Yeah.
And so, how often do you talk with Jenna?
With the currently daily, because we have a bathroom that is gutted, and a contractor that kind of screwed us, and we have many kind of open wounds right now in our financial situation. So we talk about it almost daily, and we talk about it, is like optimistically as we can, and kind of figure out, what we're going to juggle and how we're going to, make our next move. So it has not always been as optimistic as it is now. And so that's another thing that we worked really hard on, because the situation, like right now, it is stressful. There is a lot, on our plate right now. And we can choose to let that be stressful. And there are times when the stress is real, like what happened this week, like you got to process through that and feel it a little bit. Right.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, if we invest too much of our negative energy into that, it doesn't help us at all. So we try to be really objective when we have those talks on a daily basis.
Yeah. You made me think about another topic that I think is important as well, is when you're thinking about the people that are going to help you in doing construction and, managing your finances, things like that. The other thing that I can't emphasize enough, and this is what we say about our company, is that yes, you might pay more, but you also are going to get the best in the business. So for me, one of the things that I think I have continued to look at is that I don't look at skimping on things, because I found that it always ends up biting you in the ass. I also try not to do things where I'm doing things with friends just because they're friends, like, oh, they can do this, that type of thing, because that, they could do this work. I want to know, like, are you good at what you do? Because it ends up biting you in the ass when you don't find the right person. So I think that, that's also a financial decision as well, is that, we want to be nice. We want to, help other people out. But I'm like, I also want to make sure you can get the job done as well.
Absolutely.
What do you
Yeah.
think about that?
Oh my God, Sarah. So that is something that I am just still, that is very, very real for me right now. And Jenna, we have these really open hearts and have a lot of empathy, so like the contractor we were working with is somebody that was, struggling, and we wanted to give him a chance, and we felt for him, and we're trying to help him and his new wife and all sorts of things, and it ended up, not being the best for us. All of a sudden, he had been paid almost all of the money for the labor. The work hadn't been done yet. I was holding on to the last 1,000 and not paying him that until the work was done. But his, alcoholism got the best of him, and he's in jail for his like 5th DUI. And of course, we didn't know that there was this legal trouble. We so. Yeah. But the point is that we were thinking about him and not us,
Exactly.
And that's what gets us into trouble, And
I think the only time you do that is, like, I have done that, but I've also been willing to be okay with the money going away.
And like it's actual charity in a way.
Exactly.
Right.
And that's how I look at it. So, for example, one of the other things I learned is that I don't loan money. I give people money. Like, if they need money, if they pay me back, great. But I'm not going to give you money. I'm not going to loan you money and expect something back, because that's just something that I learned that will just bite you in the ass. So I have no expectation. If I have the money, I'm able to give you the money, then I'm going to give you the money. If you just look at it as a loan and you pay us back, great.
Right.
Those types of things. And I think about those things even like with kids, for example, that you want to have go off in the world, teaching them how to, okay, well, you're going to pay rent, and so, but the way that I will plan on doing it is I will be setting up a savings account, and everything that they pay me, I'll be putting in a savings account for them. So when they move out, boom, here you go. Now you have money that you can have set aside to be able to help you as well.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah. And so, one of the things we haven't really talked about that's crucial is budgeting. And so, when you also think about savings, people always think, oh, I need a savings. but think about why you need a savings account. So a savings account is meant to pay for things that are unexpected. It's not to make interest. Like, you make very, very little. So when you think about how much money you have in a savings, I try to at least have 3 months worth of savings because of whatever your expenses are,
Yeah.
whatever your expenses are. So
Right.
for different households, that can be different, but you should have a savings that at least covers about 3 months. If you can have more, then better. But you don't want to if you have more than 3 months, maybe you have 4 or 5 months of savings in there, but the rest of it should start to go towards investments. And
Yeah.
so that's where I think a lot of people are missing out, especially with like 401k. If you have a company that has 401k, you should be maxing that shit out. How much is it that they'll contribute, and max out the amount of what they will contribute at least, because that is your future. And so, if your company is doing, 4%, you should be putting away whatever that equal matches, because that's free money that is coming from your company, and you're missing out if you're not doing that. And then working with a financial advisor in what it is you can do to invest money. And so one of the things that I've learned is looking at it where you're putting money and you're not going to be taxed. And it also, I can pull it out as I need to. So, for example, we decided we were going to buy a second home, and we used it as a rental property, and we ended up doing VRBO. And I also say that a lot of this is luck. Like, I will say that I have had a lot of luck in my life. My
Mhm.
husband deciding he wanted to pay the student loans. Um, you
Right.
know, and then this isn't luck, but this is sort of luck. In some ways it's a horrible luck, but parents passed them away, and we inherited money, from them. And then
Right.
we use that to invest in a home.
Right.
We had also been investing money as well, but we were able to pull that out and buy a house. And we bought a rental property right before COVID, which ended up being an amazing timing, because then we were able to pay off our house, pay off, and I told Jay, the other part is that I manifest, shit.
Mhm.
And I'm like, I have in my mind what it is that's going to happen. And I said, we're going to have this house paid off in 2 years. And he just looked at me and laughed. He's like, okay. And I was like, no, we are. And then, things that happened, we ended up paying off the second house in 2 years. So
Wow.
currently we have no debt whatsoever. Like,
That's amazing.
we pay cash for the car. We have everything taken care of. We have basically the money that we have, we're just investing. So I pay all of the credit cards, I pay all the bills. Jay takes his money, he pays his ex, for Gavin, and then he takes the rest, and all of his money goes into savings. So that's, how we handle all the finances.
That's
Um,
amazing.
I have extra money and I put it into savings. So we're just, stocking money, to be able to prepare for what the retirement plan is. And
Yeah.
plus, we also know we're going to have expenses we're going to have to buy a car for Riley. We're now having to pay insurance, for Gavin. We're going to have college, that we're going to have to pay for. But we have IRAs that we're also able to pull money out as we need to as well. So, so a lot of it is preparing. But,
Right.
it didn't happen overnight. I started with nothing. My parents, gave me nothing. Everything that I have is, some of it, as I said, is luck, but a lot of it is also because I was a saver. And I was like, okay, I remember I was telling him about my ex. When we were in college and went on an internship, I told him, you have $15 a day in food expenses. Like, that's what I told him. And he was living in St. Louis doing ATF. He was doing an internship with ATF. And
Wow.
I was like, if you spend $15 at lunch with them, that's your
it.
daily allowance. Like, so I was very strict, because I was like, look, we don't have the money to be able to do this. That's the other thing that I wanted to find out from people, is who manages finances. It's funny. I always managed the finances until I met Jay, and then he was willing to do it. And I was like, okay, I'll let you take that on. And so it's also important to understand that you have the saver of the family as well in the financial aspect of things.
Yeah. 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 Yeah, definitely. I'm the one that manages it. But Jenna's getting more and more involved, which has been helpful.
Yes. There's lots of comments. If we can maybe go
Yeah,
towards
I want to
those.
hear what people are saying, please.
Oh, there's a lot. Okay, let me go back up. Let's see. All right, Raven, thank you for coming. She said, very true, powerful topic, ladies.
Thank you, Raven.
Yeah. And then Divine said that part, helping in different ways, not a traditional transactional relationship.
Like where you were getting emotional support and yeah.
Values, purpose, love, loyalty, and pleasure is important to me. And she also said, I checked out emotionally, but financially, I got screwed because I didn't secure myself.
Yeah.
I hear you. There is always time. It's never too late to do it. I'm a good example of that. Invested in my husband early on in my life. And then I was like, all right, now it's going to be me. I'm focused on my career and what it is that I'm going to do. And if I have to say anything, I feel like this is probably more for women, but it could be true for men as well, is that a lot of times we look at relationships and say, oh, this person's going to help me. They're going to help keep me secure. And our lesson will be that we also need to look at ourselves for the security, because when we don't, we'll learn that lesson one way or the other in the relationship. So when we both come into the relationship, and that's what I really liked about Jay, is that we both came into the relationship wanting to help support and partner with each other in making sure that we were helping each other. And so like there's certain things that I know that I was able to help him. And one of the things he always said is that he liked the fact that I was helping him with his career. So whenever he was going from the beer sales side to the liquor side, he had to do presentations. So I helped him. I was like, okay, let's put a PowerPoint together. Let's, let me have you practice with me and let me have you present to me, that thing. So I was helping him in presenting to be able to do that. And then apparently my PowerPoint went to everyone else that did presentations because it was so good.
They're like, and we've got a new template.
I know. And so, but he loved the fact that he was like, he attributes me to helping him with his career and helping him and encouraging him like, yep, you can do this. And I think that's, one of the things is that he's always encouraged me. I've always encouraged him, to continue to go after what each of us want in life.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That's huge. Yeah. And that's something that Jen and I are really great at as well, is encouraging each other and supporting each other. And that does make all the difference, in so many ways.
Jennifer, it looked like she stopped by. I'm not sure if you're still here, but good to see you this morning. And then, Divine said, I needed those gems today. And she also said, Sarah, my financial advisor. And so, yeah, girl, let's get it going.
Yes.
And so, all right. So Maria said, thinking back, I believe it was a bill time. And when I got the bank statement, I remember adding up his craft beer for a month, 500, and it was nothing but denying, blaming, and justifying. So you're about to hit a topic that I really want to talk about, which is red flags as well.
Yes.
And so Divine said, they say a woman should always keep a stash of extra cash. Okay. So we're going to talk about that as well. And when women don't feel secure in many ways, it can throw off our hormonal balances.
Yeah.
So do you want to talk about red flags?
Oh yeah, let's talk about red flags.
So there was a couple that actually came up already in what we were saying, but I think lack of transparency would be the first one. And so if, in that second relationship, I found out about that other credit card, that to me is telling me you don't feel comfortable and safe enough to really like for us to be on the same page. And I was actually I was upset at him. I was like, look, like I had asked you, is there anything more? Because now the plan that we had now, it is now changed because you now have this extra debt. So here I was feeling we're making progress, and then you throw yet another fucking credit card debt on top of that. That doesn't make you feel like you're in a trusting relationship, because you feel like you have to hide it. And that
Right.
makes situations worse. Like, let's just deal with it all, with both of us, so we can
Right.
handle it head on. So for me, lack of transparency on things is the first red flag,
Yes.
that you may not be on the same page with each other.
Yeah. And I'll say that, some of that can be a little normal, especially early in a relationship.
Yeah.
I remember there was a very, very small thing that Jenna had hid from me. And there's been plenty of things that, dishonesties that have been my way as well, so
Yeah.
I am no saint by any means, but it was a real learning lesson for both of us. Like, this made you uncomfortable. You were even a little embarrassed.
Yep.
But, we need to know we have to be a team, and that was a good moment, early on, very early on, that really kind of defined how we recovered from that and moving forward. Right.
Yeah.
But if it's something that somebody's not accountable for, if there's hiding, if there's justifying, just what Marie was saying, that is just, it's not okay. This is your livelihood. Like,
Yep.
when you tell the story, and I even know a little bit more about the story with your second, relationship, and, hearing that there was this whole other credit card, my gut was like, well, Sarah was doing all of the work to make this happen. You don't hide something, from the person that's helping, so,
Yeah. And I think, part of conversations, you also, one, have to create a safe space with each other,
right,
to let each other know that, I don't see you as dumb. You may be ignorant. That's different. Dumb and ignorant are two different things. Dumb
right,
is, you're choosing not to be educated. Ignorant is, oh, I didn't know.
right,
And that's okay if you don't know. Like, I may have said some things today and people were like, oh shit, I didn't know that.
right,
That's okay. You were just ignorant on the topic, but you're not dumb.
right.
Dumb is choosing not to
To learn.
to learn. Yeah, exactly. And so, and people also have fear of judgment
Right,
on things as well. So that's where, Cate, you're super good at active listening and understanding each other, each other's perspective, and also making sure that you're focused on a solution versus blaming. So,
right,
okay, here's the issue we're having. How do we deal with this? How do we have the transparency? We both need to come up with a plan. And so
right,
then that goes into other red flags. So let's say you come up with a plan. This is what we said that we were going to do. We are aligned. Yep. So, as Divine said, I'm aware and aligned now, and so that's the type of relationship things that you need to do. But let's say that someone then does something that then is completely different than what it is that you said you were going to do. So
yeah, right. You're
they
aligned, and then all of a sudden, they just do what they want.
Exactly. And so
Right.
then they do things that are against what it is that you both agreed to. That's another red flag.
Yeah.
um, Avoiding the money conversations, that can be a red flag, because that can lead to, like, is there a fear that's related to money? So
Right.
what is the emotional aspect of money? And I think that that's one of the things that a lot of times people don't talk about. And so when you think about people that grew up in a fear scarcity mode of life, they have a lot to sort of figure out and to get through. They have to be very mindful of understanding that money is not something to fear, but you have to understand those past experiences can impact you. And so
Right.
a lot of times, they will feel unstable, or they will not want to have those conversations, but they need to learn to not be scared of the things that they are attributing with money, and that takes time
It
um,
does.
to do that.
Yeah, it does. I'll give you, one of the things, if you're having trouble relating to your partner's fear, whether it's about money or anything, you know, ask yourself, do you think do you think your partner wants to be afraid? You know, and it's a little thing, but you know, it helps you kind of empathize and put yourself in their position a little bit, right? Because nobody really wants to have fear, right? But you know, fear is scary, and it's then really uncomfortable to unpack, right?
Yeah.
But one of the things you got to do, which is what Sarah's talking about, is you got to get real. You gotta at least be able to point to it and say, yeah, there it is. You know?
Yep. And, you know, Divine said, that's why I focus on inner security as well. We must feel safe to express the raw,
Yeah.
real. Exactly. And so the other thing is impulsive or excessive spending. So one of the things that I also learned, I worked with someone that had been homeless. And one of the things that I learned is that when people are homeless or when people don't have a lot of money, we sort of look down upon them. We're like, well, you know, like, why are they spending money on all this? Like, once they got money, they went through it. They didn't save any of the money. We also have to understand that sometimes that endorphin of spending the money makes them feel good because they don't feel good with where their lives are. So sometimes they will do impulsive type things because they just want a jolt of feeling good.
Yeah.
And so because they don't feel safe, they haven't learned how to actually manage money because they see money as a quick drive of just feeling good. So I'm going to go spend all this money on a guitar, you know, even though I don't have the money to actually spend. And now I'm also back to homeless again. And so it is an interesting concept to think about. And as a society, we have to think about how we can help people to feel secure in what it is they do, less judgment in those types of things.
Right.
And that's one of the things that I also learned about people that are, you know, perpetually not dealing with the savings aspect of things because they don't feel secure, they don't feel safe, they aren't at a place that they feel like, oh, I can actually save. They're just trying to live for the moment.
Right. Yeah. When they're in that the impoverished like situation, right? That's a situation, but that can also be a mindset, like what you're talking about, that scarcity mindset, you know. And you can see this in most inner cities, right? And it happens in rural areas as well. But you know, you can see in most inner cities, you know, how this becomes kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy in a way, right? So, you know, you do get paid and you do a little bit to make yourself happy because, you know, you haven't been happy for so long. And then, but you're also surrounded by, you know, a lot of those same choices and worse options, you know, like, and for instance, in the inner city, you know, there aren't good sources for groceries. There aren't good, you know, they're like, so you do end up spending money you shouldn't on fast food or other things like that, you know, and the cycle just kind of continues. Because, you know, you need that dopamine hit, right?
And someone had mentioned earlier about stashing money to the side. And so I have a little bit of a different perspective on this. So for me, that it's a red flag that someone feels they need to stash money. And the reason I say that, it's not that I don't think you should have separate money. It's the hiding aspect of things. So my husband and I, when we got into the relationship, and I would highly recommend this type of approach, is that you have a joint account that you pay bills with. Each of you contribute. So for example, you know, my husband and I, for the longest time, we would both just have money from our paycheck automatically added. We knew how much needed to be in that joint account to be able to pay for all the bills. So it was both of our responsibilities. I don't know if I'm getting a little bit of a delay here. So I'm just going to switch and then head back again. So give me just a second. I have two different cameras. And so that hopefully that's better. It wasn't keeping up with me, but we have a joint account that we pay all of the bills, and then each of us have a separate account. And so one of the reasons that I recommend that, it gives you the stash that you need. It allows you control of your own money, but it also allows you that if you want to buy a gift for your spouse and them not know about it, you know, you have that account.
Right.
So for me, it's not stashing money away. It's literally going into the relationship and saying, we're going to have a joint account. We're both going to have our own account. So after we both pay the bills, we can do whatever the hell we want with our own money.
Right.
And, and then if we have, then we're also have a savings account. So, you both should be contributing to the savings account for unexpected expenses and things like that. So once you have those, different things, then, then you can do with it as you want.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because, some people will be like, well, I don't have enough money and this person has a bunch of other money. Well, you need to have that type of conversation as well.
Right.
So like how will you handle that? Is there, maybe, you add extra money, you both decide you're going to add extra money and you both can take out so much, related to different things.
Yeah.
But my husband and I were able to take care of ourselves. So for example, he pays for his ex and for his his son out of his own account. That doesn't come out of our joint account. That's his responsibility in the relationship. And so it's just having that conversation with each other and saying, okay, what are we going to do in this situation? And so for me, I'm a very I don't know. I feel like I'm a pretty generous person. So,
Oh yeah, you are.
I'm, his money is my money. I don't worry about it. Just because, and this is, I think, also related to money as well, related to career. I'm just not concerned because I know that, I can go out if something were to happen, I can find another position. I'm marketable. And so
Right.
I think that's also a part of the financial things that a lot of times people are afraid to take risk
Yeah.
in life, and understanding who is willing to take risk and who isn't. Like my husband is he wants his job and it really scares him to like think about going out and getting a different position. Me, I'm like, I don't give a shit. Like I can go out tomorrow and do something. Like that's my mindset. And I
Right.
think that goes into finance as well. I'm willing to take more risk, but I'm also able to see more reward. And I also
Right.
might deal with some things that don't go necessarily my way, but I'm going to learn from it and I'm going to
Right.
come back.
Right. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, this is like so many great nuggets that you've dropped today, Sarah. It's like it's so hard to keep up. Want to tell like a very very quick story about the stash because it's just so relevant. So, literally 2 weeks ago, Jenna and I were at the farmers market and we saw our sister-in-law and our niece and nephew, and they had this little really cute bag. Our niece had it, and then our nephew grabbed it, and then she was like, give me the disappear bag back. Give me the disappear bag. And we were like, disappear bag? And Katie was like, oh yeah. So she's like, it started as a joke, but I have this little bag and I used to put, early in the marriage, I would put cash in there. And sometimes, Tony would be like, well, we don't have the money for it right now. And I would be like, look, we have cash. And so now it's a thing, like he'll come home and if he has some extra cash, he'll say, put this in your disappear bag. And she said, so now the disappear bag is what we use for thrift stores and rummages and farmers market, and the kids know what it is, and we, and it's hilarious that it's still called the disappear bag. And Kate, and it was, and they named it that way. She's like, well, you never know if I have to disappear. It's so cute, right? So,
Oh my gosh. But he knows about it. He knows that
Right.
she has a disappear bag.
Right. And so Jen and I had the same thing, early on, and it still happens, so I just count on her having cash squirreled away somewhere. There would be times where I'm like, oh, I need, like pizza delivery, like, oh shit, this guy really did a good job. I want to give him a little extra. Do you have a 20 somewhere? Or do you have a 10 somewhere? And she's like, yep, and she just goes and finds it and gives it to me, and that's always been, something that we do as well, but we know about it, right? It's like, it's not really hiding.
Yeah, exactly. And so, I know that we are at 118 now. And so, I don't know. I could continue to talk about this topic all day just because it's something that I've really spent a lot of time sort of learning
Yeah.
about and how it is that I can be better with my money. But I want to just get some maybe final thoughts, and also just to, ask a question of, are you willing to take risk financially? And, so just to understand from our audience, so maybe you guys can give us final thoughts about today. And then I'll also ask, are you willing to take risk financially? So Cate, maybe you can also answer this question as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think Jen and I both are very willing to take risks. We haven't done a ton of investing or taking those types of risks. That's something that I want to learn more about as we continue to level up. I feel like that's smart. But but I think in general, very willing to invest in things despite it being uncomfortable. Like right now, Jenna is really focused on a career path, and she's never had a career path, and because she's been raising and homeschooling our kids, and as they get older, she's just being called to do more, right? And so we're investing in that. It's on paper, maybe it's not the best time because we have but it's necessary. We're not doing it stupidly, but we're putting a little bit of money into that, and cutting an expense in another way rather than taking that money and putting it all into the bathroom, which is one way of thought. But we wanted to do both, and so we're just slowly doing both in order to take that risk, because we believe the reward will be there. And the reward is, Jenna feeling supported and investing in, that it's not just her that's investing in, it's our whole family that's investing in this new path, because she's been our whole family this entire time, and she wants to do something different and cool. We're there for it. So that's the type of risks that we are taking right now. We're not taking big investment type risks, but we will at some point, I'm sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So for me, I'm definitely willing to take risk.
Yeah.
And
I love that about you.
yeah, but I also will agree with Divine. Yes, I'm willing to take risk, but not blindly. I am the same way. Like, I will weigh the consequences. Like, what are the consequences of
Right.
this? But what's the reward? But I also won't be stopped by fear of doing things. And so for me, I think that that's probably one of the things that I'm probably really good at, is that I'm willing to go, you know what? I'm actually willing to take this leap, and do this. But is my partner with me on this as well? So that's also important as well. Like, as I started to become an owner of a company,
Yeah, I was going to say,
again, yeah. So again, I had some luck, but it was also a part of hard work as well. Like, I was working 16-hour days starting this new company because we split out, and I had been with the company and had shown and demonstrated my ability to be able to help lead. And so the owner took a risk on me, and as well as 3 other partners. And so for me, that was luck, as well as, I also earned it. I showed that I could do this. And so I had to have a conversation with my husband and say, okay, I have this opportunity, but I also need to let you know, or need you to really think through the impact that this means. I may be working and having late conversations. I'm also going to have to be responsible for the livelihood of other people.
Right.
So that may mean that I'm working extra hours, or I'm doing things to make sure that their lives are okay.
Right.
So I started thinking through the consequences of doing this. And, is there a possibility this might not work out? Like, what does that look like? Because we're agreeing personally that we will also be responsible should this not work out, we will have to be responsible and pay this person out of our own pockets if this, for whatever reason, didn't work out. But that risk was really low. That's how I looked at it, because I knew what we were bringing in financially already with the company and
Right.
things like that. So for me, that wasn't as much of a risk as it was with our relationship.
Right.
Is he
Handle this.
ego wise going to be able to handle that I'm making more money than him, that he's going to have to be doing what a lot of people consider the female aspects of the relationship.
Right.
And luckily I was with a partner that said, no, like, go,
Do this.
you make that money, girl,
Right.
And so, he supported me in what it is that I was doing. He supported me by helping to take care of Riley, to do food, to do the laundry, to do all of those types of things, so I can continue to do what it is that I loved. But he also, as a task, he told me, he's like, he's a task-oriented person. He's like, just task me with stuff. And I'm like, so you want the honey-do list? Like, I hate that shit.
Right. Yeah. Jenna and I had similar conversations when I started the business, that I had.
Yeah.
And, there were times when early on, when I couldn't pay myself, and I had, because I had to pay my employees, and then there was a time this week when I had to, take our family money and put it into the business, and she's, she's always stayed true to, like, supporting that, never feeling resentful, like really understanding that in the bigger picture, this is just what you have to do at times. And so I think it's super important that you have those discussions, and that you really find someone who's able to follow through on that commitment, right? Because Jay could have said, oh, sure. And then, a couple years later being like, you know what? I don't like being the bitch in the relationship. I only say that because that's what he calls it sometimes, to joke, right? But like, like so many things in life, there's a basis of value and trust and communication that needs to be there, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and that's when you think about relationships, no matter what it is, whether you're talking about your career, about finances, about sex, about anything in your relationship, it requires open communication and understanding your values, and making sure you're both on the same page, and also understanding that both of you might evolve as well. Like, things may change. So how do we evolve together? I mean, that's true with like everything in related to your relationship. It's not just financial, it's everything.
Right. Yeah, it sure is. And we haven't even gotten to that aspect, but man, this went by so fast. I feel like we could have talked forever. I really, really love all of the engagement from our audience. Thank you so much for sharing so much.
Yes.
All of you, but especially Maria and Divine. You were a part of this, and you were vulnerable, and it was awesome to hear from you and to get your insight as well. So thank you so much.
Yes. So, Cate, thank you for taking the lead today. It felt good having you take the lead and ask the questions. And so thank you for putting that together and doing that.
Yeah, I loved it. And we should try to do this. We've only done this, I think, once each time, right? Like, you did something similar like this with, something. So we should try to do this more often, because it is fun.
It is, yeah.
It's fun to, like, also just answer, not be like, okay, what should I ask next? Or what, like, it's nice to just, like, talk sometimes. So let's try to figure out how to do more of this. If any of you have any ideas, please let us know. As always, we're looking for and love your insights.
Yeah. And we made a couple changes as well today. I don't know if you guys noticed, but I'm trying to do a different thing with our video as well, showing it a little bit differently, because we're going to be starting to create more like short reels and things like that. And so we changed up the format of how we have things look. And so tell us if you like that as well. And then we also would like the topics. Like if there's something you think that Cate's super good at and you want to learn from her, let us know what that is. If there's something you think, hey, Sarah knows a lot about this topic, we would love to hear more about this. So we can maybe take this approach on the first week of the month. We always do just a discussion between us. So
yeah,
let us know.
Yep, we would love that.
Yeah, and so
at some point we could do, and we could do. It would be funny if one month we did something that we're both good at, but our total different takes, right? Like sales.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Do you think we're different on sales?
Not really. Not
I'm
that
trying
much.
to think if there's anything we're totally different on.
Yeah.
We'll
Not
have to
a
think
lot.
about that.
Yeah.
Divide. She said switching roles.
Yes. Yes.
Why did I take it that way? She said,
because it's you. All right. Well, I hope that this money and investing and financial conversation has inspired you, and you've learned something new from Sarah today. And but I found it really inspiring, and of course, very topical and relevant. And I hope that this inspires all of you to continue down your very badass journey. And allow some of your badassery to spill into your financials as well.
You guys have an amazing Friday, amazing weekend, and hope it allows you to be able to fuel you to figuring out how you can make more money and also investing in that love. So everybody have an amazing weekend, and we will see you next Friday. And we actually have a special episode next week. So be sure to come back and check it out.
Thanks, Sarah.
Everyone.